Welcome back to Jennifer Broussard Art. Today we're going to paint this cute little penguin for our March Penguin of the Month because in March is when the baby penguins are hatched. Supplies are Fabriano Artistico, 100% cotton and 140-pound cotton watercolor paper in 5 by 7 inches, my 3 DaVinci paints, Phthalo blue, Arylide yellow FGL, and red rose deep. I'm going to use these brushes, Princeton Heritage 8 and 4, a silver white 0, and a small Rosemary Co Eradicator brush, and a little bit of salt. Okay, I have everything traced and I've already taken off the extra graphite like I like to do with my plastic kneaded eraser. I have my plate ready to go. I have some fresh yellow and some fresh red rose deep. I did not get fresh blue because it's easy to activate. I have this left over from a previous painting and I'm going to keep it and probably use it in the mixing process. I'm going to start with the mother penguins, or maybe it's the father penguin, I'm not sure, with the belly. And I'm going to come down to underneath the little claws, and do all of this, and then we'll work on the baby. The reference photo is very orange, and I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it in cooler colors with a little bit of orange just to indicate a little bit of sunshine. But I wasn't crazy about the tint of this photo, but I really love the look on that little baby penguin's face. And I chose this for March because this is when the babies have hatched in Antarctica. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and wet the bottom. Clean water on my number 8. They're standing there on some ice, frozen ground. It looks like I forgot to make the little claw there. So I'm going to get a little bit of gray, and the way that I made that is I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to get some yellow. I'm going to get some red. There's an orange, and then I add a little bit of blue to that. That kind of turned it green. And then you go back and forth between the colors until you get to the color that you like. Add some more blue, and there's a nice warm gray. I think I will use that back here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this background. There's just a tiny bit of it. And then I'll use this bluer one. So if you made that with me, just add a little more blue to it now. So I'm going to take some of the blue and add it in here. Plenty of water. You want everything to dry pretty smooth. It's okay if you get watercolor over the toes. They are darker than the background. I'm going to use some of this too. Put that in there. Just so we can vary the color a little bit. Okay, I'm going to let that sit there like that. I'm just going to fix that right there. Check all my edges. I'm going to do some little flicks here for her feathers. On the top of my brush, I'm holding my brush upright like that. And on the very tip, I'm just flicking in some of this gray. I'm going to do that here too. I got that term little flicks from Louise DeMassey. If you wanted to, you could add salt to this. I'm actually thinking about adding just some little drops of water. And leaving it like that. Okay, I'm going to let that dry. It's all dry. I wanted to point out that I had the drawing a little bit wonky and I fixed it while I was drying it. This is a little wing and this is a wing, and I missed one of the toes, but I'm not going to draw it in. I'm going to just do it when we're painting. There is one more claw right here, and then there's another little one in the back. So we'll add that when we're done with the rest of the painting. So now I want to wet the adult penguin's body all around the baby penguin. Around that little wing and around these feet. And then right here, this is fur, not fur, but feather texture from the adult, because the little baby's kind of under everything. And you can see if you've got everything wet by tilting and looking at the glimmer. Okay, and now I'm going to put just some more color in there. Some more shadow color. I think I will do some yellow first. Lightly. Add some yellow here. Some yellow right here. We want it to look a little bit sunny. So we'll add a little yellow here and there. So there's some okay, now I'll do some of this color. It's kind of the same as the background, so I want to make sure that when we put this in, that we have it a little bit different. Add some blue to that. I kind of obliterated the yellow that I put here, and that's okay. It doesn't matter if it's there or not. Lots of colors in this penguin body. The head is darker, so if you don't stay in the lines, it's no big deal. I still am going to soften that though, because I don't want it to dry hard and then have a funny texture on the head. Okay, I'm going to add some fun colors to the mama or the papa. This. No rhyme or reason, I'm just putting in some colors. I am thinking about contrast though, and how I can help this baby stand out, because this is light, so behind it I want it to be a little bit darker. And keep that yellow showing. Get some of the blue. And when you have plenty of water, you have a little more time to play around with, all of the different things that you're thinking about. Now I just have a wet brush and I'm going to try to blend this into something. I want it to read, obviously, that it's an adult penguin. I liked that and I got rid of it. And this dried hard. Okay, I'm just going to finish down here. There's a lot happening underneath these claws. I don't know that I'm going to do a lot about it in the painting, but we'll deal with that when we get there. And then this. I'm going to kind of lift, make that a little more clean. I'm going to try something that I've been thinking about to show feather texture. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make like a point on this napkin. See if I can't get some of this feather texture. I'm just dragging it through the paint. Maybe it will add just enough directionality to have the viewer focus on the baby. I think that did really well. Hope you can see that. It's pretty bright in here today. I'm going to let that dry. Okay, it's all dry, and now I'm going to work on the baby's body here, and I'm going to make a grayish brown. So I'm going to start with orange. I'm going to get a pretty good glob of it because I want a lot. Get some red or pink. Add a little water to make it flow. Try to get all of that, well, most of it, that pigment out before I rinse my brush. Now I'll add some blue. Looks like it's green. It's a greenish brown, so we're going to need some more red. That turned out sort of a burnt umber, which is a little too warm, so I'm going to add a little more blue. That is a good brown for this penguin. And I think for part of it, I'm going to add more blue over here. Maybe a little more red over there. So now we have sort of a darker brown that's cool and a lighter brown that's warm. A little more red to this one. There. Okay, I'm going to wet. There's sort of some rings to this penguin. I don't know if you saw on your outline, there's some little flicks right here. So I'm going to go from under the chin to the little flicks. Just with some water. There's a white highlight right here on the edge, and I did not wet that. Okay, I'm going to get some of the warmer brown and put it in. Can drag my brush right along the line of the chin and let the water take that paint. I'm going to get some of this and add it right here under the chin. Okay, I'll add some of that up here. Okay, I'm just kind of getting some of that up with a damp brush. I'm going to let that dry, and then we'll do the second little ring that we see. But I think while that's drying, we can work on this, which I'm going to use my number 4. I'm going to put this color on it. And that will be the light color that you see on here. When that's dry, we will add the darker, like little flicks inside there. So we just have this second little ring here with a little bit of a shadow right there to do. Let's work on this little wing. I'm going to wet the wing. Clean water. It's a little too much water. The tip of the wing has some texture, and the rest of the wing just looks white. And I'm going to add a little yellow to this. Put that right here. I like how that just naturally went into the wing. Nice. Okay, I'm going to try that over here. The tip of this wing also has a little bit of texture. I'm going to try to get that smoothed out. Okay, I'm going to wet the wing. And get some of this little yellowy brown color and put it on the tip. There. I'm going to deepen the color here. And here. Okay, I'm going to let all of that dry. Okay, I'm done drying it, and I'm going to come back under the chin again. I'm going to take some of this darker brown, and I'm going to dab my brush off and kind of swipe back and forth for a little bit of texture down there. And then I'm going to take, I kind of want a really dark, I'm going to wait until we make the dark to do what I'm thinking of. Now I'm going to wet the rest of the body with some clean water. I'm going to go just up to like this wrinkle right here, where the little flicks are, where our pencil is, and around the feet. And I'm going to add this darker brown. I'm going to get out my number 0. I'm going to add some of this. I want a little bit of a different shade to do this. I'm just flicking like I'm making grass right up into that wet area, but leaving some of the color behind to show through. Oh, I like that. And then some little flicks in here into that layer. That's a little bit how you do negative painting to make feathers, to show feather texture. So when there's a light on top of the dark, you can just push the dark into the light and you'll have what you need. I'm going to do a little bit more right here. It's kind of dark down here. Okay, I'm going to let that dry. I want to finish these colors up before I move on to the head, so I'm going to dry it off and then we'll work on that a little bit more. I think it's time to make the dark now, so I'm going to get the blue. I'm going to make a lot of it. A lot of blue over here. Get the red. More red because it's still looking blue. I want to turn it purple. There's a little bit of purple. And now some yellow to tone it down. It's still looking purple. Okay, that's pretty good. Now I'm going to take that color on my 0 and put it in here in this little crevice. And it kind of goes like that. And then I'm going to do the little flicks. And then this is coming in here too, underneath this wing. I'm just going to put it there to hold its place for now, and we'll work on that area later. A little more pigment here. I'm going to flick this into here so that we see the mother's feathers coming down over the penguin. Okay, now I'll get the number 4 again and get the brown and fill this in a little more. And stay away from those flicks. Less. Now I just have a damp brush. Okay, now I'm going to come down here and I see it starting to get light right about there, and it goes like that. So the light's coming and shining onto the penguin like this. So here's the light. You soften this. And I'm going to do some more of the little flicks. Like this. Get a little bit darker pigment. Down in here, it's pretty dark too. A little more dark. Okay, that's doing a cauliflower. Gonna add some more of this right here. I'm going to let that be soft. I don't care if it has little flicks. There. Okay. And then this dark comes out around the toe. And you can just let the water take it. Okay, I'm going to dry that. Now I'm just going to use my zero, dabbed off, and I'm going to try to change this a little bit. I'm just going to put it through that clumped up pigment there. Now it looks a little softer and a little fuzzier, like a baby penguin should look. Much better. I'm going to put a little bit of this dark down here. And then up here. I'm going to define this little chin a little bit. There. Now I have a damp brush and I'm going to soften that. And then add more pigment and it'll get a little darker. I would like to know in comments if anybody else struggles with this paper. I have a feeling this is old. It doesn't act like any other paper I own. So if you're using Fabriano Artistico 100% cotton, let me know what's happening with you, because I'm not loving all the textures that I'm getting, and maybe I need to learn to go with it. But this is very difficult to do. It's not just you being a beginner. If you're struggling, it's not you just being a beginner. I wonder if it's the paper. I put a little bit of this dark here and define this chin a little bit. Well, this side of the chin. This is what I'm talking about when I try to soften edges with this paper. It doesn't. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start the head. And I'm going to get this brown and put it right up here. Some yellow. And soften it. Okay, I'm going to get the dark color that we mixed and fill in around the eyes. Okay, it's dark around this eye. This reminds me of the little kid in the Munsters. Anybody else? The little boy. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, then forget it. Okay, I'm going to do everything except the little beak right here. I'm going to actually stop right there because this is part of the beak. And I'm going to go down like that. And I'm going to come down under the beak, this little part of the mouth. I'm going to get my 0. Okay, it goes under the little tip of the beak. And this is fur. And I'm going to leave that like that. And we're going to let this dry. I'm going to actually add a little texture here. Since this paper is acting this way, we may as well use it to our advantage. I'm going to take some of this off here to show some of that feather texture. Using a damp brush, just wiping it off. And then I can move it around onto here. Okay, I'm going to let that dry. It's all dry, and I'm going to add a little yellow now to the penguin's face. A little there, a little bit up here, a little bit here. I'm going to add a little yellow to the wing. Bright sunny day. A little yellow to this wing. And then a little yellow here. And then down in here. Let's do a second layer of dark. I mixed another dark off camera, same procedure. And I'm going to add it right to the head and darken this up. Darkening this up has really helped it look less awkward and weird. All watercolor paintings go through this ugly stage, and it's really easy to get discouraged and just want to throw it away. Just keep going. Okay, now down here I had put in some texture. I'm going to make this beak. Okay, there's like a point. And I'm just going to forget about that texture. I'm just going to fill it in. Little flicks. Some little flicks down here. And then when that's dry, we'll just fill this in with some lighter pigment. That's drying funny. I'm just going to add more. Go ahead and add the eyes too. I'm going to use the 0 for that. The dark color. Now this little eye, these eyes are on the side of the penguin's head. So they're a little bit skewed because they're not looking right at us. We're looking at them in a foreshortened state. So this is like a swoop up and over, and then a swoop down and over. This pretty little shape here. Let's come down here to this part, some more dark. There's some dark back here. This is a really dark nail. What I'm going to do for these, all these nails, I'm just going to go over the whole thing to make sure I get that point there. And then later on when it's dry, I'm going to put a darker nail on it, right over it like glazing. I'm not going to worry about the highlight. I'm just going to take the highlight off later. There's a highlight on this toe. Just fill them in. That is a big claw. Okay, now back here, we have this one's dug into the snow. There are a couple of little claws here. I'm going to ignore those. I think they're the little baby's claws. They're small. And this claw. I'm going to go ahead and put in some wrinkles in a darker value, and then we'll go over it with a light value. So I'm just putting some toe texture, some toe skin texture. Doesn't that sound kind of gross? Oh. Think of elephant skin, not toe skin. How about that? Same thing over here. There's a little bit of like rough skin right there. And then that's just light gray. Okay, we can do the little beak. And it's a pretty light color. I'm just going to put this gray color right here on the little tip. There's a highlight right above that little gray part, which we'll leave alone for now. I'm going to fill in this part. And this will be lighter than what we did back here on the face. I'm going to make it a little darker. So if you focus on making the little highlighted part of it have contrast with the rest of the head, then you've done it. I'm going to add a little more value here. Okay. It looks weird, but that's the way it is in the photo. So I think I'm going to go ahead and dry everything. Okay, I'm going to fill in the toes. I'm going to take the brown and add it right over. Same over here. And then back here, underneath the penguin, there is another toenail against a dark background. I'm going to do the dark background first, which kind of goes like that. We'll let that dry. I'm going to put some dark background here. I think I've decided what to do about this. I'm going to fill in the dark like this. And we're going to do like the same thing we did over here. When this is dry, I'll add a little more yellow. And then back here we have This is a dark shadow under the mother's flap. So we'll just reinforce this negative painting right here. Just make it a little darker. I'm going to add some of the brown. And I'm going to soften that. And I'll add some of that shadow color down here and soften it. Damp brush. And I will add some over here. Like there's a toe here. I'm going to add that toe, actually. Toenail. And that's just in the snow. It's dug in, so we don't see the tip. Okay, when that gets dry, I will add the shadow there. Okay, let's do I'm going to add a little green to this, just darken it a little more. Do the toenails. This whole thing is a toenail. This whole thing seems like it's that. This actually goes, this whole thing is a toenail. Duh. Okay. Isn't painting amazing? Like you think you're seeing something, but you're not. You're not seeing it. I'm gonna go like that. Go on this side of it. There's a little highlight right there. And then this one comes back too. Okay, so this one has a highlight on the left side. Make this darker. Make this darker. And then make this back here darker. I have a damp brush and I'm just going to go through that little white area and make it ambiguous. And I'm going to do some of that nail toe texture right there. I'm going to get this darker. I feel like this needs to be darker. Okay, we're going to finish up down here and then we'll do the face. There's some ambiguous stuff back here behind these nails. So I'm just going to take some of this brownish color and fill it in. I want it to be a little bit different than the toe color, which also might get darker. I'm going to add some of this dark. There's like snow and fur and shadow, and there's a lot of stuff happening down here, so just kind of scrunch it in. Brown, I want some brown. Now this is going to do little flicks. Okay, I'm going to take some of this dark and try to turn it brown by adding a little red and then a little yellow. A little more red. Okay. There, that's more brown and that looks a little better. Okay, now I'm going to wet this toe, just the toe, and into that little shadow part right up to the wing. It's a lot of water, so I'm going to take a little off with a damp brush. And I'm going to put in this, I'm going to darken this a little bit, and I want it to be shadowy here. Soften that line. Now I'll let that dry, and then we'll do the other toe almost the same way. A little bit darker though, right up there against the wing. And you can just wet something, and then next to where it is dry, next to the wet, you put in the pigment, and the wet will take it. It won't go up into the dry side. While we're waiting for that to dry, we can probably do some highlights. I'm going to take off a highlight right there. I'm going to take off some little pieces off of this toenail so it looks a little bit rougher. This is how we're just going to add texture with a regular paintbrush. Just paint it with water and dab it off. This one needs a toenail, so I'm going to just drag it through here and make a toenail. There. I might add a little bit of pigment to that toe. We need to darken it in here, next to the toe. So now we have a dark shadow way back there, coming out to this. I'm going to just do this. And then it's contrasting with this big toe. I'm going to add a little more highlight right there. And then, okay, now I think I can do some more highlight in here. I can do what I did with that toe and drag some of this pigment. That looks good. Right on the tip of the brush, I'm just dragging it through this little under part. I'm going to do the same thing over here, where this little body touches the snow. I'm going to soften it and dab it up. Straighten up this edge. This actually might make it look a little more furry. It's not looking so ugly anymore, is it? A few highlights, a few shadows, and you're good to go. I'm going to darken this by this toenail. And I'm going to darken this one more time. Going to get some of this color. And some yellow. Okay, so this looks like the mother's flap on her leg. Her leg is coming down and then her feet are sitting on top of her flap. So this is still the mother's body behind the nails. And then I'm not really sure what that is. We skipped the little baby's claws here. I think this is dry enough now. We can add more shadow. This is very dark right here. And it's giving this toenail some dimension. So I just added some right on the dry paper, and I'm going to soften that. And we can do that over here too. So between these two toes, there's quite a big shadow, dark shadow. And then here under the wing, and I'm just going to soften that. Whoa, that was a big drop of water. Okay, now with just some of that light brown, I'm going to just dab some more texture on these toes. I'm not loving this shadow. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of highlight to the face. Just little dots of white. I think I'm going to use a little knife. Some little glimmers. Little glimmers up here. And we're going to do some little furs. First, I'm going to take off a little bit of this. I'm going to make that brown. And now let's get some of these little hairs. They don't have hair, it's just their fluff. They're down. Like you're making grass, you're just going to flick some little hairs up off the head. A few over here. Such a cute little baby. A few little flicks over here too. Add yellow, maybe that will work. No. Red. All right, let's do some little things to the eyes. And darken the eyes. Then I'm going to wipe off the brush a little bit, and I'm going to go around like that. And the little nose has a little bit of yellow, little beak. I need to get the dark and add it right onto the tip there. I'm going to enlarge that white part. Sometimes paintings come off without a hitch, and sometimes they make you work. I'm going to add a little more value to the wings. over here too. It's going to soften this line. And I'm going to darken that nose right here. I made a thicker pigment of gray off camera, and I'm going to add it in here, just like that, and then soften that. I'm going to add some right here on the bottom part of this toe, and then I'm going to soften that so that it kind of leaks out onto this background. And then we need this to be even darker. Now that we're on that stage of the painting where you just are pumping up values. And I'm going to do these little flicks. I don't love this. Sometimes you're just chasing mistakes. I feel like that's what we're doing today. A little bit. A little bit of dark down here. I'm going to try to make some more of these little hairs by negative painting them in. This little face needs a little something. I'm just going to wet it and add a tiny bit of this brown, just a tiny bit, just to take the edge off of that white. Tiny bit of brown, move it around, there. And then lastly, this little shadow that's back here, it goes from here to here, and then underneath the baby. We need a little shadow around there, and then a little more shadow out here. I'm going to add some of the dark to this. And then I'm going to soften it. I know I've said lastly like 3 different times. I'm going to get a little bit of this gray and put it right on the bottom of this wing and then soften it. I'm going to wet this wing. Instead of the softening thing, I'm going to wet it and then drop in some shadow. And scooch it around. All right, I was debating on doing this with you, but I'm going to use the Eradicator brush. And if you want to, you can do this with like a 1/4 inch round if you have one, or you can try and do it with your number 0 or your number 1 round. Synthetic. Synthetic would work better. I'm going to try to soften this little area down here by scooching this brush around back and forth and dabbing off the paper. I'm going to go up here too, add some of that up above there. There, now it's a little bit blurred where the transition is, and it looks a little more natural. I'm going to do that here too. Okay, that's fine. And then if there's anywhere else where you want to fix, you can just use this like it's a little eraser. It's really pretty amazing. And then I'm going to just put a little more of that brown on the head. I'll just put it all over, except for the nose, just so I don't get weird drying lines. And if you don't want to do that, then you don't have to. This actually might help with the nose contour. It was looking pretty flat, but putting on one more layer and then not putting it on the nose part. See how that little change in value helps with that contour? A little bit of dark right down here. Up into the head. And then I'll soften this. A little more here. And then with the Eradicator brush, I'm going to soften this little chin. There. I want to do a couple more things just to give this a little more depth. I want to put a darker value over here in the background, and I want to put some salt on that. This will give it a little bit more depth and interest. A little salt. There's something back there like another penguin or something. And then I'm going to just be careful right here. Skip that line and bring this down here. I'm going to add just regular blue. Add more water if you want to lighten it up. And I'm going to add salt down here on the bottom too. And then all this stuff back here kind of gets pushed to underneath the penguin, and this baby really stands out. Okay, salt, just to show some chunky snow down here. All right, you have to let the salt do its thing on its own. I'll be back when mine's done. I know this tutorial is getting a little long. If you're thinking that you can't do this, if you feel like this is too hard, you absolutely can. Do it one step at a time, just like I showed you, and take your time. Take as long as you need. You don't have to do these extra things that I did. You can simplify it as much as you want. If you don't want to do the little flicks, don't do the little flicks. Do the basics, do the head. Do one color for the body and just put in, while it's still wet, put in some darker color. Make it simple. But you absolutely can do this, so don't shy away. The last possible thing I'm going to do, and I promise, is flick out a little bit of snow. Just a regular craft knife. Just flick it out, just some of it. I think the salt looks so pretty. And then my last thing, part two. I'm just going to darken this. I'm going to do. I promise. My promises mean nothing now. I know. And with that, I hope that you learned a lot in this tutorial. There's a lot in this. So thank you so much for sticking with me. I look forward to possibly seeing your posts on my Facebook group, Water and Pigment, Jennifer Broussard's Painting Pals. With that, have a great night, and I will see you in the next video.